Hello everyone, hope you all are doing good. And this side Kashish Wadhwani from Board Infinity, and I welcome you all to another amazing session. So today we are going to discuss about how to get hired by Amazon as a product manager. And for this, we have a very special person with us, who is Mr. Rutvij, who is working as a senior product manager at Amazon. And today he'll be giving us learners an in-depth insight on how to be a successful product manager. So first of all, a very warm welcome, sir. Thank you so much for connecting with us today.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Hope you're doing good, sir.
Yep.
Okay, so without wasting much of your time, I'll quickly get on to the questions. So these first few questions are based on you and your decisions and your perspectives, and the other few are based on the profile we are talking about.
Okay.
So this first question is basically a sum up of all that you have done till now. So, firstly, why did you choose this field? What exactly drive you towards this field, and how has your journey been so far?
Okay. So as a student, I was always fascinated by the power of technology and automation. And ever since I used a computer for the first time, I had developed a knack for learning more and more about the tech world. So I started out, I think, by learning C programming when I was at school. And from then on, there was no looking back. I did my computer engineering and started my career in 2012 as a software developer with TCS. And from there on, I went to do an MBA from Great Lakes Institute of Management, Chennai. But since I always had technology close to my heart, so while most people were majoring in areas like marketing or finance, my majors at Great Lakes were in IT and analytics. And so post MBA, I went on to do analytics roles, first as a senior analyst with Infosys, and then a product analyst at Ola. So Ola was basically the first product company that I worked with, and that is where I picked up an interest in product management. I explored and learned hands-on product management there, and from there it has been a great journey to GE and Amazon. Personally, I have enjoyed all of the roles that I have worked on so far. However, I feel I found my home with product management, and I believe as long as I am in the tech corporate world, I wouldn't want to move to a different role ever again.
Quite an amazing journey, sir. But I have a question here. Like you did MBA in IT and business analytics, so
Yep.
that's a unique choice, I'll say, right?
Yeah.
So
So yeah, go ahead.
yeah, you tell me. You know what the question is.
No, I mean, if your question is why did I choose that against the traditional MBA majors, then the as in I never actually wanted to do an MBA. I was always a tech guy, and I thought that tech guys need or don't really do an MBA. I was focused a lot on coding and all sorts of things. But when I started my journey with TCS, I started realizing that there is more to the tech world than just coding. And that's when I started looking up at how can I understand the business aspects of the technology world. And so I decided that if I do an MBA ever, I will do it in IT or a field which is very close to the tech space, because I did not want to switch my career to a completely different role which takes me away from what my passion is.
So you were always clear on what you want, and that's what you opted for, right?
Yes. Yep.
So my next question is for our viewers today who all are watching us, they are aspiring to become a product manager or just thinking about it. What do you think is the biggest plus point of being in this field, and what are the qualities that are needed for the same?
Okay. So first of all, a disclaimer is that when we talk about product management in this session, we are referring to the tech product management and not traditional product management for non-tech products like FMCG or insurance, or there are a lot of domains which use this terminology, but our focus here is on tech product management. So coming back to your question, I think a very important trend happening across industries and all sectors is digital transformation. You think about any industry, let's say education, retail, finance, even oil and gas, or any other sector, technology has become a core pillar for most companies. And those who are left behind, they are learning the hard way to start embracing technology. So with this, all companies, in my opinion, would need tech product managers to run the show, because a product manager is essentially expected to have the skills to finally come up with what product should be built, when it should be built, why it should be built, and also give inputs on how it should be built. So they are essentially accountable for the success or failure of a product. And in today's startup driven world, most startups are like one product startups, right? So the success and failure of the product itself is going to determine the success or failure of the startup. Now, when we talk about qualities, some of the key qualities I think that a product manager or a successful product manager would need is, first of all, empathy. Being able to understand the psychology of the customers, what motivates your customers, what are the pain points, and a lot more around basically putting yourself in the customer's shoes and trying to feel what they might feel. Second is communication. You need to be able to articulate with different stakeholders in a language that they understand. So, for example, when you are talking with software engineers, you need to be able to speak and understand the technical language. While when you are talking to your business stakeholders, you need to understand and speak about the business aspects. So, communication is definitely a key because you work with a lot of stakeholders. And then third, I think, which is something I have learned over the years, and most product managers would also learn through their career, is that patience is a very important quality, and it's vital because uh, it's primarily has to do with the way this role is structured, because uh, we generally build products in an iterative way where we learn things, then we try them out, you get feedback, and you improve. So sometimes it can become a very slow process, and you need to be patient throughout the process. Also, because of the number of stakeholders that you need to interact with and influence on a daily basis, I think patience is very vital in those conversations to make sure you drive the outcomes that you are looking for.
So that gave me quite an insight of what we need for that position. So next question is related to Amazon. So, like Amazon is one of the most desired companies. I'll say each and every person will at some point they'll say, okay, I want to go in Amazon. So we have also heard that their STE hirings and their whole scenario for hiring is quite difficult. So, what was the scenario for product management when you applied?
So in general, I think product management in Amazon, they are definitely hiring a lot of product managers because Amazon has a wide variety of tech businesses, and they all need product managers, be it Amazon retail, where tech product managers are responsible for the end-to-end user experience on retail websites or mobile apps. And then there are things like AWS, Kindle, Alexa. The physical stores also are heavily tech enabled, like the Amazon Go and the Amazon Fresh stores, where product managers are responsible for things like the smart shopping cart, which automatically detects what has been put and do an auto payment when you walk out of the store. So uh, there is definitely a lot happening at Amazon in the product management space. Now, to your question about whether what was the overall interview process, I think um, uh, w- uh, in general, most tech companies, and Amazon is no exception, are very transparent about how their interview process is. And I think that works out well for the company as well as the candidates. I can go deep into exactly what are the steps involved, uh, if you want right now, or we can also do that later.
So yeah, we shall keep it for the end of the session.
Okay.
Another question related to this part is that is MBA from a top college necessary for applying this position, or anything else that will?
So the short answer is no. Neither an MBA from a top college nor an MBA by itself is necessary. MBA is definitely a preferred qualification in many roles and positions, but it is not an absolute must. So personally, I've seen many software developers within Amazon who transition into a product management role. So that could be one path where you can first move into Amazon as a software developer and then later on transition to product management. There are no hard generalized rules as such. An experienced product manager can directly look at relevant roles and apply directly, versus, let's say, a fresh MBA grad, on the other hand, might need to first build a career path towards product management unless they already got into campus placements or something of that sort. And as a software engineer, or some, if you are in software development or some other tech role, then you might first want to transition internally in your company to a more product centric role and gain some experience. Of course, there are always exceptions depending on what you bring to the table. So for example, if you have fantastic domain knowledge for a particular role, then they might consider you even if you don't have the relevant experience of product.
So these were quite few questions based on you and your profile. Now I'll get to the technical part. So as you firstly mentioned that technical product manager is different from the ordinary product manager. So what does a technical product manager actually do?
So I mean, in some ways, a product manager and a tech product manager are also similar in a way that they solve customer problems, right? The only difference, and I think the major difference, is that tech product managers solve those problems using technology, versus traditional product managers build whatever is the domain they are working in. So an insurance product manager would come up with a new insurance product, for example. But let's focus on the tech part of it. So I think the different things that they need to do, right? It's starting from, first of all, they need to have a good understanding of technology and how it works. What are the possibilities that can be unlocked through technology? What are the latest trends in the tech world, and being able to understand how complex systems work. um, Now, another thing is, while you understand the tech aspects, you also need to understand the business side of things. So how businesses function, your ability to identify customer problems, because essentially that is the core of the job, that you are identifying problems and opportunities, and then you are building features or products to solve those problems. So if this is so for this, you would basically need to learn things like market research, how to do customer interviews, how to gather primary and secondary data, analyzing data, etc. And then uh, another very underrated skill is prioritization. In big tech companies, especially, you are constantly juggling between different features, bugs, or products to determine what should be built first, what can be left for later, etc. Because essentially you have very limited resources, you have limited time, you have limited number of engineers who can work on something, and you also have a limited budget. So how do you work through all of these constraints and make sure you build the right product for your customers, is what prioritization is all about. And finally, last but not the least, is stakeholder management. Be it written communication or verbal communication, you need to articulate things specific to your audience and influence the plethora of stakeholders that you work with on a day-to-day basis, because you want to have limited friction in the overall end-to-end product definition, execution, and launch process.
Okay. So in between, you also talked about some of the skills that a technical product manager requires, right?
Right.
So the next question is specifically about the technical skills that are required for this position.
So when we say technical skills, right? Um, so that there could be two ways of interpreting technical skills, right? One is any skill that is required to do the core part of your job could be considered as a technical skill for that role. So what I mentioned earlier could be considered as technical skills for product management. But then the other interpretation for technical skills could be what you are referring to right now is uh, actual tech skills, right? So that's where I think it's not necessary that you need to have a coding or a development experience, because there are many product managers who thrive without having that, especially if they have good domain knowledge. But one needs to understand that you will constantly be working with software developers and engineers. So if you are not able to communicate or understand what they are doing, then it is going to get very difficult. So it is always a good idea to at least do if you are not a computer engineer or a technical person by background, it is always a good idea to do some sort of a crash course in understanding how technology works, how software development processes work, so that you understand what your engineers are doing day in and day out. At the same time, you should also start understanding how complex system architectures work. So, for example, you can look up on the web to look at architectures of famous companies like Netflix, YouTube, Facebook, Amazon, to get an understanding of what exactly system design and architecture is all about. Because that's where you will be interacting the most with your engineers to give inputs on how they are going to design a system which you have proposed.
So, like, is it really tough to break through product management without having a technical background, or easy?
Uh, so I wouldn't call it tough or even easy. It's all depends on what you are bringing to the table. So there are, I mean, in companies like Amazon, there are thousands of teams, right? And all teams have product managers. Now, some of those teams are building extremely technical things, dealing with APIs and system integrations and things like that. Those teams might have a hard requirement that they want someone who has had a technical background, versus there are other teams which are more business focused and tech is like an enabler for them. There they might want people who have the domain experience in that particular area. And tech skills are obviously something that can be acquired with time. It's kind of a balance and varies from role to role. I wouldn't say it's difficult if you don't have a tech background.
So there is one thing like so you mentioned that I had an eye on IT. So even if I did MBA, I wanted to go for IT. So if
Right.
someone who aspires to become a technical product manager, what should they look into themselves that this quality is making me choose this decision? I'm sure this will work.
Yeah. So I think anyone who wants to become or thinks that they want to become a product manager, they should not be doing that or going that route just because it sounds cool or everybody is doing it. But they should try and understand whether it is something that they are really interested in. So if you are the kind of person who is always interested in building new things, so like for example, if you are using Uber for booking your cab, or if you are using Amazon for shopping something on the retail website, are you just being a customer, or do you also observe the different features and you keep on getting new ideas about what could be improved and things like that? That could be probably a good indicator that you are someone who has that product management mindset. But I wouldn't say that it is a mindset that comes from within. Sometimes you can also develop and acquire that. So if you are really interested in that role, then you can start learning about product management. You can take some crash courses. You can read up about what are the day-to-day things that go through the product management role. And if all of those interests you and excite you, then you should definitely go for it. Now, as far as the path is concerned, it's not, again, as I mentioned, I wouldn't say that you need to go and do an MBA in IT for it, right? I did that because that is what I chose for myself. But at the end of the day, it's a personal choice. It's not like you don't need to learn marketing and finance. Even an IT MBA would learn the core marketing and finance and all other subjects, right? So if you have an interest in those areas, then you should definitely follow them, and there are great roles in those areas as well. And a lot of marketing MBAs also go in as product managers later on in their career. So it's not that IT is the only way to go forward and become a product
Okay, so now we'll be coming back to Amazon and you. So, how is the interview process in Amazon, and what was your experience facing it?
manager. My experience was similar to what most other candidates might have. As I mentioned earlier, Amazon has a very transparent interview process. So first, I was briefed for the role and the position by the recruiter, who would ideally also walk you through the entire interview process so that you can prepare well in advance. After that, you have typically one phone screen and then one on-site loop. So the on-site loop is typically done face-to-face at an Amazon office, but with the pandemic, we also have virtual loops. So my interview, for example, was done virtually over video conference. And what I mean by the on-site loop is basically it's a series of typically 5 interviews by various employees, including the hiring manager, some of your potential team members and peers from other functions, as well as an independent interviewer who is generally a tenured Amazonian from a different team and has no stakes in the role. So over the entire interview process, that is both the phone screen as well as the on-site loop, the focus is on getting some examples where you can demonstrate from your past experience leadership skills as well as product management skills. So as many of you might know, Amazon has a set of leadership principles. With the two most recent ones, it adds up to around 16 leadership principles that Amazon lives by. So all Amazonians are expected to demonstrate those leadership principles in their day-to-day working life. And so all of them may not be applicable to all potential candidates. There are some that you would understand and learn after you join the company, but your recruiter would ideally brief you about 13 odd principles that are important, and you would be expected to have 1 or 2 examples from your past work experience for each of these leadership principles. So you need to demonstrate that you have uh, demonstrated this leadership principles in the past. And with the 13 leadership principles, basically it comes down to around 13 to 26 examples that you should ideally prepare from your past experience. Now, of course, some of them might overlap, and you may reuse the same example if that is the case. But if possible, it is always a good idea to have different examples for each of your leadership principles. And apart from that, of course, there is the normal product management skills like prioritization, working with engineers, problem identification, planning, road mapping, etc. So ideally, your leadership principle, the answers to your leadership principle questions would demonstrate how you have done all of this product management tasks as well. But if not, then the interviewer might also ask you separate questions or specific questions about how you have demonstrated this skills in the past. So for example, how have you worked with engineers, or can you tell me about a time when you had to prioritize between two difficult choices and stuff like that. So it's all about your past experience. And as far as tips are concerned, I would say just be honest and confident, prepare a lot, um, think really hard about everything that you have done in your career so far and how it relates to the leadership principles as well as to product management skills, and then articulate it in a structured way. So there is something called the STAR format of answering questions, which is basically you first describe the situation, and then what is the task that you had to do, what was the action that you took, and what was the final result that came in. So that is perhaps a good structure that you want to follow during these interviews.
So you gave a really good advice based on this question, because yeah, that question might be very important on the selection process. So do we have any other such questions that are essential for them to know?
So I think all of your interviews, as I mentioned, would have questions on each of these leadership principles. So you will get, and for example, one of the leadership principles is customer obsession, right? So that you would be expected to uh, talk about an example where you were really focused on the customer, or you did something really great uh, to make sure that your customer needs are met. Similarly, there could be another leadership principle about inventing and simplifying. So they might ask you, tell me about a time when you did some sort of an innovation or simplified a complex process. So my recommendation to everyone would be to go to Amazon's website and read up all of the 16 leadership principles, understand what each of those principles are, and then start preparing examples of whether you have demonstrated these principles in your past experience or not. If you haven't, then don't go overboard and actually create anything out of the blue. Make sure that you are honest during your interviews, because there will be probing and challenging questions within each of the examples that you provide, and it's very easy to tell if somebody is making up something.
Okay, so be honest and don't bluff,
Yep.
right?
Yes.
So, sir, Amazon is like one of the top most leading companies in the world. So, how is product management there?
Um, so I think by now it is public knowledge, and I think Amazon has made it known multiple times that they work through a process called working backwards, which is essentially that you start from understanding the customer and their pain points, and then work your way back to the technology and the solution. So that's exactly what product managers at Amazon do. They are obsessed with customers, and they keep focusing on various problems, pain points, and unmet needs of customers. And then they start thinking about what are the various ways in which they can potentially solve this customer problems using technology. So product managers are typically responsible for defining the product vision and strategy, as well as prioritizing customer problems and defining which problems need to be solved first, establishing boundaries for the solutions. So that means defining things like the minimum viable product or the minimum lovable product that you first want to launch with, and then how you would essentially iteratively add new milestones and new features to your product. Uh, Product managers also deal a lot with data, so they continuously collect, monitor, and analyze data to get insights about the customers and the product. We also do a lot of writing, so uh, uh, you need to write documents on product strategy, vision, new initiatives, documents for business reviews, press releases, FAQs, etc. So, writing skills are very important at Amazon, and I think in some roles you might also have an interview round where they would test your writing skills. So they might give you a writing assessment and then evaluate that. Overall, I think tech product managers also work very closely with engineers. So they describe what needs to be built to the engineers in a language that makes it easy for the engineers to understand. And then sometimes, if you don't have a project manager on your team, then you might also need to do some of the project management work, like monitoring the progress of the development against timelines, identifying risks in the execution process, and determining mitigation plans for those risks, and overall ensuring that all business stakeholders are aware and have visibility of what's going on with the product. And then you also do things like pre-launch testing or UAT, making go no go decisions of whether you should go for the launch with some bugs. So prioritizing the bugs, writing and sending launch announcements and stuff like that. I'm sure there are a lot of other things which I have missed out on, but by now you must have realized that overall product managers are basically owning everything about the product end to end. They are essentially the product leaders with a lot of ownership and independence within Amazon.
So I do get an insight that you quite enjoy your work. So will you like to give us some insight on your experience till now?
I mean, without getting into too much detail, I think overall I have enjoyed my experience so far. It has been a wonderful journey. I think I joined back in May 2020, so it's more than a year now, and there are a fantastic bunch of folks that I've worked with. Everybody is very smart, and um, everybody is enjoying what they are doing, and that makes the entire process of working day in and day out quite a fun experience. I would encourage anyone who is interested in applying for roles at Amazon to look out on the jobs.amazon.com website and find something that matches your profile and go ahead and apply.
So yeah, all our viewers can go and apply for job positions there. So as we are nearing the end of the session, I'll ask you to give a final advice for all our viewers and your views on the importance of this domain.
Sure. I mean, honestly, I think everyone has different likes and dislikes. So one man's treasure could be another man's trash. I enjoy product management a lot, but someone else might not. And so my main advice would be that make sure that you are making a conscious decision after understanding what the role is all about. And once you decide that you want to pursue this role or any other role for that matter, it is not like I mean, you need to work patiently towards that. It's not like you decide a particular career goal and you achieve it immediately. There will be multiple stepping stones that you might need to go through, and it may even take sometimes years before you finally achieve what you set out for. So I would say be focused and patient through the journey and make choices that can eventually lead you to the place where you want to be. That is the key. Apart from that, just keep yourself abreast with the latest things happening in the tech world and be open to learning new things. You should be fine. And uh, as far as scope is concerned, I think there's definitely, I mean, as I mentioned earlier, as long as this world is running on technology, I believe product managers will play a crucial role in the future. And so there's definitely no lack of scope in this area.
So yeah, end of the questions from my side. First of all, really a big thanks for connecting with us today, because it was such an insightful session that you answered each and every question based on the experience that you have had till now. So it was true from your heart, and I hope that it helps each one of our viewers here.
Thank you. I had
Thank
a
you
great
for
time.
connecting with us, sir. We can end the session here.
All right. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you everyone for joining us today, and we'll be back with another amazing session again. So please stay tuned.